How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. Very glad to have you with me. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be very, very happy to have you. Don't forget to text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777 should you wish to get the show notes, the live stream, the podcast, all that great stuff. I have to circle back to a story we talked about last week because there is a greater angle to it. First, we must discuss my hatred for the Jones Act. The Jones Act needs to die. The Jones Act is, well, a bad piece of protectionist legislation that was passed by Congress years ago to protect the American shipping industry. And it essentially says the Merchant Marine Act of 1920, or the Jones Act, is a federal law that requires all goods shipped between U.S. ports to be transported on ships that are American-built, American-owned, American-crewed, and American-flagged. It's called the Jones Act because Wesley Jones of Washington State did it. Now, here is a problem with the Jones Act. The ships that are required for the Jones Act are in limited supply. We don't produce a lot of ships. As a result, it drives up prices. Consider, for example, aid to Puerto Rico after the hurricane that devastated Puerto Rico. One of the reasons it took so long, One of the reasons it took so long to help Puerto Rico is because the supplies to Puerto Rico could only be shipped on Jones Act ships, and the president did not waive the Jones Act. There are a limited number of those ships. They are expensive and they're old. Those American-built ships are very old. They're very expensive. And it took a long time to help Puerto Rico because since Puerto Rico is an American territory with an American port, you could only use Jones Act ships. Between the Jones Act and Gavin Newsom, we have set ourselves up, should there ever be a war in the Pacific theater, to lose it. Gavin Newsom is compromising American national security in ways that could be detrimental to any war in the Pacific. And the Jones Act has something to do with it. I mentioned to you last week, Valero is shutting down its Northern California refinery. This spring, it's going to shut it down. Valero decided it would rather eat $1 billion loss than continue operating under California's regulatory compliance regime. This comes on the heels of Phillips 66 shuttering its Los Angeles refinery in October. All of that has driven up the cost of gasoline, and it's going to drive up the cost of gasoline even further in California. Now, think about this. California had two major oil refineries, both of which are shutting down. If ever there is a war in the Pacific, because California continues to shut down its oil refineries, and not only that, limited pipeline capacity inside California, so we can't even ship oil into California, you're going to have to do it by ship. And the oil is going to have to go from the United States on the East Coast to the United States on the West Coast via the Panama Canal, if not train. And they're going to have to be in Jones Act compliant ships. There are 55 Jones Act compliant oil tankers in the entire world. If you want perspective, there are 7,000 oil tankers around the world. 7,000 oil tankers. There are only 55 that can be used from American ports to American ports because they're Jones Act compliant, built in the United States, manned by Americans. This is insane. So you know what California's solution to its oil shortage is, and one that's going to compromise our national security? This is from Bloomberg News. U.S. supplies of gasoline are being shipped out of the country to travel thousands of miles via the Bahamas before ending up in California. Shipments on the circuitous route are increasing. California imported more gasoline in November than ever before, with 40% of it coming from the Bahamas. The lengthy journey adds another layer of cost to California's already expensive gasoline market, yet the phenomenon isn't likely to disappear soon thanks to a combination of disappearing oil refineries, a lack of interstate pipelines, and a loophole in 106-year-old maritime law. California has among the strictest environmental regulations in the United States, making it costly for energy companies to operate in, though a wave of upcoming refinery closures is prompting officials and regulators to soften its stance. On average, the closures could raise the cost of gasoline for consumers up to 15 cents a gallon. Under the Jones Act, any goods shipped between U.S. ports must travel on U.S.-built, owned, and operated vessels. When California's specialized gasoline trades at a premium, particularly during refinery outages, Gulf Coast refiners can capture higher margins by sending barrels westward. Routing through the Bahamas allows them to avoid higher-cost U.S.-flagged shipping and preserves that spread. In those moments, there are going to be plenty of incentive for PADD 3, that is Gulf Coast, and Asian refiners to supply Californians. And the trade is accelerating. Last year, California sourced more barrels of gasoline from the Bahamas than it had in the prior 9 years combined. You got that? Here is how this works now. Because of California's environmental regulations, Gulf Coast oil refineries convert oil to gasoline, put the gasoline on ships that go to the Bahamas. They dock in the Bahamas and then leave the Bahamas and go through the Panama Canal to California. Because California is shutting down its oil refineries, and Congress won't get rid of the Jones Act. There are 7,000 oil tankers in the world. There are only 55 Jones Act compliant tankers, and they cost more, raising costs even more. So American oil refiners like Exxon, Marathon, and others down on the Gulf Coast are putting their gasoline in foreign tankers, letting them go to the Bahamas to check the box, and then routing them through the Panama Canal to California. We don't have enough pipeline capacity. We don't have enough wherewithal to recognize California has compromised our national security. This is one of those instances where I wonder if it would behoove the President of the United States to, for national security grounds, take the Valero refinery and claim it now as a military installation and continue to operate it as a refinery, but under the care and control of the American military. I'm not in favor of the president's socialist policies where he's been taking control of American companies and ownership interests in American companies and things like that. But this is a direct tie to our national security. If there's a war with China in the Pacific theater, of which there are increasing odds in the next decade or so, and California doesn't have any oil refinery capacity, the ability for us to get gasoline to our ships in the Pacific is stymied. Not just that, but California's ability to participate in the economic buildup to be able to produce supplies and goods for a war effort would be stymied. And all of this is backdoor environmentalism, much of which, keep in mind, has been funded long-term by the communists of the Soviet Union and now the communists of China. And those environmental communists in California have won a great deal and have now cost 2 oil refineries in California. And we're having to use ships to send fuel from Louisiana and Texas and Mississippi to the Bahamas, to dock in the Bahamas, and then turn around and sail it to California. And this is the most alarming thing. California got more gasoline from the Bahamas last year than the prior 9 years combined because California has shut down so many oil refineries over environmental regulations. It can not now produce enough to preserve its own economy. California is compromising our national security. Gavin Newsom is compromising our national security. The Chinese are cheering this on. The environmentalists funded by the Chinese are cheering this on. The progressive left that hates the American free market and hates the production of oil and gas is cheering this on. You should be appalled by it. I suspect most of you are. By the way, the Bahamas doesn't produce oil and gas. That's the other funny thing here. We're essentially having to bypass the Jones Act. Congress itself is culpable in this for its failure to repeal the Jones Act. There are 55 oil tankers in the entire world that can comply with this American law. This American law hurt the rebuilding effort in Puerto Rico after the devastating hurricane a few years ago. It has hurt other rebuilding efforts. It has driven up the cost of American commerce. It is pure protectionism that makes no sense in this economy, particularly when the United States government is on record blasting our own ability to produce ships. We can't produce the ships to comply with the Jones Act, and yet we are bound by the Jones Act to only use ships that we can't produce. What happens when those ships stop? And the wild thing is, should anyone sabotage those ships, well, those are far less ships for the United States. They haven't changed the law, so we'd still have to comply. If China or a foreign government sabotaged the 55 Jones Act compliant ships, there would be no way to get gasoline from the East Coast to the West Coast except by pipelines, which don't exist because the environmentalists fought the building of the pipelines. There would literally be no way other than train cars, which have been increasingly sabotaged by environmentalists over the last number of years. Honestly, if the environmentalists wanted to completely sabotage American national security, if they could find and destroy the 55 gas tankers, oil tankers that are Jones Act compliant, you would wipe out the United States right now. Is that not wild to think about? All you got to do is find those 55 tankers and sabotage them, and you've destroyed American energy independence right there because of the Jones Act. That's how bad the Jones Act has hampered American national security, and that's how bad California is hampering American national security. I'm surprised the environmentalists haven't done it, given how violent they've turned. Honestly, maybe if they did it, Congress would finally realize the Jones Act is a bad idea. I'm flabbergasted looking at this. California is going to cost us a war effort. California leads the nation in homelessness and poverty. Businesses and individuals are fleeing. I saw Mark Zuckerberg is moving to Florida. Google has moved to Florida. Other billionaires are moving out of California. Just the threat of a billionaire wealth tax is causing people to flee California. That should tell you everything you need to know, that they think that the Californians are probably going to do this. By the way, I've been to Mark Zuckerberg's house. It's a beautiful house. Not actually a very pretentious house, mind you. I hope he doesn't sell the house. It's a gorgeous house. But he's moving his family to a bajillion-dollar home in Florida in large part because of the progressive policies of California. By the way, to the Zuckerberg family, Florida is a much better place to live than California. Certainly hotter than where you lived. But it's a great state for freedom. So is Georgia, so is Texas. California is crippling its own citizens' ability to live. It's going to cripple a war effort should that, God forbid, come. And it's all because of environmentalist policies in California. Wealth policies and environmental policies of the socialist left. They're destroying that state, which now leads the nation in homelessness and poverty. They're destroying its ability to be energy independent. They are crippling California's economy and now jeopardizing our national security, all to save a planet that the Chinese are perfectly willing to destroy. Welcome. It is Eric Harris here. Let me go to the phones here. Karen, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for asking. I would like to know, how is it legally possible for the government, whenever they feel like it, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, to shut it down and then expect people who are really going to be hurting live paycheck to paycheck until their demands are met? How is that possible?
Oh, because Congress writes the laws, so they get to do these sorts of things. You go through the appropriations process. Every part of the government is open except the Department of Homeland Security. TSA has some operating budget, so it hasn't been dramatically impacted yet. But FEMA and the Coast Guard are now, the employees are even being required to show up for work and won't get a paycheck after next week because of the budget demands.
Right.
It's nonsensical that they've done this, particularly in this particular situation, because the Democrats have chosen to shut it down and keep it shut down. But ICE and Border Patrol, the reason they shut it down, are actually funded through 2028. So the only people who are going to get punished are the TSA employees and not the Border Patrol, the Coast Guard and FEMA. If there's a natural disaster right now, FEMA cannot operate. Think about that. If there's an earthquake in California tomorrow, God forbid, FEMA won't be able to function because it's shut down. Your TSA agents within the next week are going to have their pay impacted. They've got a week or two, I think I read, of wiggle room before it starts impacting, the shutdown starts impacting TSA. The FAA, of course, is handled through the transportation budget, so that won't be a problem. But yeah, this is an all to restructure two agencies that have been fully funded. The Republicans have no incentive to negotiate with the Democrats in this situation. None. Why would they? Because the rest of the entire government is now funded, and ICE and Border Patrol are funded, and let it blow up in the Democrats' face. It's absolutely insane that this is where the Democrats have decided to take us as a country, but that's the card they chose to play, is shut down the government, hold all of us hostage to extract demands that they're not going to get. While I've been talking to you, I got a spam phone call. I'm getting far fewer of these than I ever did. And in fact, this particular company has called me several times, and I've got incognito working on them. This is Caroline Brooks with the Executive Loan Renewal Unit to reach out to me because my business shows approval for a $239,000 60-month loan, and all I have to do is call back. I actually flagged this to incognito so they can find this particular company that has still, all the others have stopped. This one's continuing, and they're working on it. Incogni, INCOGNI. Incogni.com/Eric. They work online to get the data brokers to take your information down, and they will target these companies. In fact, I sent them this voicemail and said, find this company. It is the one that continues to call me. And behind the scenes, they send takedown notices for my private information. They tell these companies to put me on their do not call list, and they work to find the companies. And if the companies don't stop, I can escalate the matter legally. Incogni.com/Eric. That's where you want to go. INCOGNI.com. It protects you and your family's personal information that may be online circulating. They send takedown notices. They treat you as a VIP, and they do a great job of it. Incogni.com/Eric. ERICK. Incogni.com. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson, 877-973-7425. You know, whenever Rush would regularly go to a topic, he tended to have a song. Like my favorite was the Yugo one for the environmentalist update and the global warming update. And I need to find one for the awfuls, the affluent white female urban liberals, although not all of them are affluent. It's just the awful white female urban liberals. They are having a mental health crisis, and I continue to cover this topic. Something is going on with white women, and it is not good. The best theory that I have seen about the rise in mental illness among white women is that many of them are childless or their children are out of the house. They are lonely, and they have adopted causes instead of kids. They've gone from being cat women to cause women, and they are just as crazy. Now, I will tell you, I had a great aunt, my mother's aunt. It was my grandfather's sister, my Aunt Daisy, and boy, I loved her. But she was a little quirky. She had been a nurse in Houston As I recall from family lore, maybe not accurate, but from family lore, she had participated in the first open heart surgery or heart transplant in Houston, and then went out and bought herself a car and taught herself to drive, driving home from Houston back to Louisiana, and she was a Catwoman. In fact, we hated to drive with my Aunt Daisy. She had a Chevy Caprice, big car, and she would leave the back windows partially rolled down, and she fed all the cats the canned cat food that stinks so bad. And she would use aluminum pie pans and put the cat food on the pie pans and then put it in the back of her car. You never wanted to have to sit in the back of Aunt Daisy's car because that is where the cats had been eating their cat food, so the dogs couldn't get the cat food. I remember one time I had a piece of fried chicken, and she told me, throw it in the yard for the cats. And I threw the piece of fried chicken. It was a chicken leg. I had eaten all the chicken off of it. I could get through to the yard, and she ran out after that chicken leg in the yard, in the grass, and picked it up and started eating the meat off the bone that was in the yard and spitting it back out for the cats. She said, you'll choke the babies. Until her eyesight started to fail. She's a pretty good cook. She made a great gumbo when I was a kid. She loved my cousin Jeff more than the rest of us, so if Jeff requested something, she would make it for him. The rest of us were second fiddle to him. She was great. Oh, she and my grandfather, they were both hard of hearing. They would sit on my grandparents' front porch in rocking chairs, and they would have the loudest conversations because neither of them could hear. She moved in with my grandparents. In any event, she was a single white woman, and she was a cat woman. And today, the single cat ladies of America have become the single cause ladies of America. Instead of taking care of the cats, they're taking care of their cause of the day, which tends to be whatever progressive issue is of the day, and they are all going insane. I want to play for you some audio here. I think we made sure there's no profanity here. Kobe, just be careful in case. This is a woman who has gone to a school board to complain that kids are setting up a TPUSA chapter and holding events in school. Listen to this. Awful. Affluent, white, female, urban liberal.
Good evening. I'm going to go off script here and say congratulations, Dr. Newsom. And in the announcement of your position, it was said, we hope you will be more inclusive. I agree. I would like the anti-racism statement returned. In December of 2025, Turning Point USA hosted an event marketed to high school students with food and beverages advertised as an incentive for attendance. While community building opportunities for students are important, this event raises serious concerns related to student safety, parental rights, and governance oversight. Event materials indicated that adults, including parents and legal guardians, were not permitted to attend, and that supervision would be provided by unnamed volunteers. Excluding parents and guardians from a student-focused event creates a lack of transparency and undermines established best practices for youth safety. School-affiliated or school-adjacent activities should adhere to clear supervision standards, background check requirements, and defined accountability structures. I am also concerned about a potential conflict of interest involving Board of Education members serving as guest speakers at this event. Board members are entrusted with fiduciary and ethical responsibilities, and participation in events targeting students, particularly when parental access is restricted, warrants careful review to ensure compliance with district policies, ethics guidelines, and public trust obligations. Students are widely recognized as vulnerable population. They are in critical developmental stages and especially susceptible to influence. For this reason, safeguarding measures, parental involvement, and transparency are essential. All Board of Education members in this room are mandated reporters under state law, as I am. Based on the circumstances surrounding this event, a report was made to Child Protective Services. All of this was provided along with.
Thank you for your comments.
You got that? This is a white-haired older white woman who has reported kids to Child Protective Services because they attended a Turning Point USA event that the families actually did have to consent to allow them to go to. Mentally ill white women, busybodies. There was I can't actually play you this audio. It is so profane. A group of white women, it's always white women, they held a Valentine's party. And they did a TikTok of their platters. One was an F-Ice fudge cake. Another was something like a I hope Donald Trump dies charcuterie board. Another was a Take Back America from the Nazis platter. The whole thing. I mean, everything at this. It was a bunch of white women who were too homely to get dates, who brought fruits and nuts to a Valentine's party to share together in the name of political propaganda. The whole thing was insane. I mean, the fruits and nuts weren't just on the platters. They were in the room sharing the fruits and nuts together. They have made politics their religion. And by the way, this always happens. This goes back to the data I mentioned the other day, that Democrats overwhelmingly no longer want their children to date people who don't share their politics in the way that conservatives don't want people their kids to date outside religion, because politics has become their religion. And their religion of politics of these liberal white women has no grace. They're just terrible people. And they're so angry. Listen to this other one. Charlie thought this was AI, and it's not AI. This is, where is it? I got the audio for you. This is a woman in the Oxford Union debate. Oxford Union in the United Kingdom. In Oxford, I have participated in an Oxford Union. I won my debate at Oxford Union. This is another affluent white female urban liberal now at the Oxford Union railing against the eating of meat.
Hamburger comes with a dose of misogyny. The assumption that the best protein comes from corpses is a racist belief. 21st century animal eating requires our complicity in a new colonialism. Our whiteness is part of the problem of meat eating. If you eat animals, you take up more climate space. Meat eating is also one of the ways gender-based structures of oppression are perpetuated. Men in the West are taunted to renew their man card by eating meat because that's what real men do. That's the sexual politics of meat, and it reveals how unsettled masculinity really is.
Really, lady? Really? Eating meat? Friends, there are many jokes that I could make right now that would probably get me in trouble with management that I will decline to make, but I so badly want to say right now. Moving on. This woman is nuts. Meat eating, you know where it originated? The Fertile Crescent, Mesopotamia, Babylon. The wealthy, they ate meat. It descended. Yesterday was Quinquagima. Quinquagima is the 50th day before Easter. It is also called Shrove Sunday. It is where they have, boeuf gras, which last night I had Wagyu brisket on my front porch with a king cake for the guys. Why boeuf gras? They will, at some Mardi Gras parades, will trot out a statue of a fattened cow. It is back in the day, they would fatten up the cow, and the Sunday before Lent, they would have a big feast, and they would eat the fattened cow because it was their last real lavish meal before they started giving stuff up for Lent. It's a 1,000-plus-year-old tradition that this woman thinks is somehow misogynistic. Hamburger comes with a dose of misogyny. So there was another one, and I also can't play you this one because of the profanity. A woman goes up to a police officer, and she puts it, by the way, the only reason I have seen this video is because she put it on TikTok as if she was some sort of hero. She goes up to a police officer. What are you doing here, officer? I'm working. Why are you here? You're outside of a school. You're scaring people, officer. I'm writing a report on a wreck. But people at the school say they saw you circle the block. I was trying to find a place to park so I could write the report for the wreck. How much longer are you going to be here, officer? Till I finish doing my job. Officer, I think you need to leave right now. Ma'am, I'm not leaving right now. Don't you call me ma'am. And she goes off on the guy. White women Somebody needs to do an intervention with you people. By the way, it's not conservative white. Now, there are some, y'all, I got to tell you, on a daily basis, I get some old childless MAGA women who come after me. Like, you're disrespectful. It's like they think they're in a relationship with Donald Trump. He's got to be creeped out by it himself. Some of these angry old white MAGA women, they come after you too. They don't have kids at home anymore, or they never had kids, and I think they really think they're in a relationship with Donald Trump. But it's particularly the progressive white women. They have adopted a cause of immigration. By the way, I saw a very, very funny comment yesterday. Someone infiltrated one of the Signal chats in Chicago of some of the anti-ICE brigade, and the good white women decided they needed to put some illegal aliens in the chat with them. Well, the illegal aliens in the chat started bringing in more and more illegal aliens who started speaking Spanish and dominating the chat, and the white progressive women who set up the chat got very, very mad and were threatening to shut down the chat because they couldn't understand what the illegal immigrants were saying. It was all kind of funny. They're having a moment of mental illness. COVID didn't cause it, but it certainly started the festering of it, did it not? The breakdown in mental health of progressive white women has been coming for a while now, but the isolation in COVID made it even worse. And they can't help themselves, it seems. And it gets worse and worse on a daily basis. These progressive white women don't, like everything is their business. They stick their nose into everything. They don't know their place. And by me saying they don't know their place is, of course, an act of hostile misogyny against them. I mean, last night I sat on my front porch and I watched curling. I'm fascinated by curling. This is a sport clearly invented by a man who wanted to get women to get back to sweeping. And I watched the American and the Chinese women try to outsweep each other last night, and I thought we need to find creative ways to get these progressive white women back into the kitchen, turn it into some sort of sport. Who could do the dishes the fastest? Who can mop the fastest? Who can make the best meal the quickest and for the cheapest? And get these progressive white women a cause to care about that is politically neutral. See who can do the best sweeping. Tell them it's like household curling. We can even roll a stone on the kitchen floor so that they can sweep with the stone on the floor and see who can do it. Find them a constructive way to get out of causes and back into the kitchen is probably the best thing we could do for progressive women. Clearly, a lot of them could stand to actually have a decent meal, too. I mean, they're out there with the wine moms. They're drinking and they're campaigning against ICE, and they're getting malnourished to begin with. I mean, they could eat a little more meat in their house. I did not mean a euphemism or pun there, but they could use a man as well. That also could solve the problem. These women are absolutely going nuts. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. So I got to mention something real quick before we get out of this segment. I didn't mean to stir up a hornet's nest on Friday, but I was talking about the Christian conversion of the Roman Empire in Constantine, and boy, did I get not just some emails, but one person was respectful, says, hey, I think you got this wrong, and I think you misheard me. Some were really angry. I was like, of all the things to incite people, what I was saying was that, like, when Constantine converted the empire, he himself didn't really convert, but he demanded that you had to be a Christian to get access to his court. So all the urban people in the Roman Empire suddenly embraced Christianity. They didn't really. It was all for public show. But if you wanted access to the emperor, you had to be professing Christian, and that's how he weeded out people who would otherwise have been hostile to him. And the actual authentic conversion of the poor in the hinterland and in the rural areas took much longer. It was actually Theodosius who actually made the Roman Empire and said it was going to be a Christian empire. Constantine never did that. So I'm talking about this on Friday. My gosh, people through their own biases, I think, and I had to be very respectful to all of them and say, I actually have a degree in this. I actually do know of which I speak on this. I wasn't just pulling this out. It wasn't a seminary take, though I studied in seminary, but part of my history major was this. I'm fascinated by the Greek and Roman times. Y'all, it just, in the level of hostility, it wasn't actually anything real. It was forced on people. It was like, dude, you may think it was forced on people, but that actually is not true either. That's a misnomer. But boy, you got a lot of armchair people who watch a YouTube video, and suddenly, and my thanks to the few people who did reach out, and I think they just misunderstood me or were extrapolating more than the point I was trying to make from it, and they were very respectful. But of all the things to get people mad at me for, I've said many things to get people mad at me for, and haven't gotten nearly as many angry emails as I got on the rise of Constantine and the church in the Roman Empire. And the fake conversions of the urban masses doing it for show to get into the emperor's good graces. It just, wow. I didn't see that coming, folks. Genuinely did not see that coming. All right. When we come back, I have to talk about Thomas Massie. I have a long-time defender of Thomas Massie and his quirks. And at this point, I think Thomas Massie needs to be driven from Congress, and I wish Chris LaCivita the best. I don't know what has gotten into, and I'm sure it's the antagonism and whatnot of the president and stuff, but it's kind of crazy watching just the insanity coming from Thomas Massie these days, the anti-Semitism and the Epstein insanity, and we need to talk about that and whether or not Texas Republicans are going to commit suicide, murder-suicide of Republican chances possibly when we come back. But first, I got to tell you about Swiss America, warning people about the secret war on cash. They've been doing this for some time. They want to give you their free report. You should read it. It is rather eye-opening. I have read it. It takes less than 15 minutes to read. They're also really good at explaining the BRICS and how they're trying to get out of the American dollar as a reserve currency and things like that. If you get the report, you get it for free. All you have to do is mention my name when you call or text 800-289-2646. And by the way, the secret war on cash applies to crypto, digital currencies, gold, silver, all that sort of stuff as the government tries to control your purchases and spy on you. Call or text Swiss America 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646. Now, you can also go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric as well, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK. On YouTube, they've got Swiss America Trading. It's their podcast channel. They're really informative about global currency traffics, how China's trying to control global currency. You can get it all, Swiss America Trading on YouTube, or call or text them 800-289-2646. Message and data rates may apply.